John Hewko. I'm sure all of you are aware of this name because John plays a very, very vital role in Rotary International. So for administrative businesses are concerned, when we approached John with the current situation, John has very easily accepted our invitation and said, yes, I will come to 3240 on a virtual meeting to address everyone. John, thank you very much. Welcome to 3240.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And it's a good morning to you. I know it's around 9:15 or 9:30 morning in Evanston, but in India, it's a good evening. So good morning to you and good evening to my Rotarians. Friends, John is connected with Rotary International. He is looking after from the top. He has taken over from his predecessor, Ed Futa, the old Rotarians who are here in Rotary for a longer time, you can understand. So John has taken over the responsibility of General Secretary of Rotary International from Ed. And after that, with the policy and the change of things, John became the CEO as well as CEO of Rotary International as well. John, basically a Rotarian. He hails from Ukraine and stays in Evanston because of his professional commitment. John, to tell you, 3240 is one district, very small district, but having a very large geographical spread over. We cover 9 Indian states from one corner to another corner. We have 91 clubs. Mostly the clubs are in semi-urban areas. We do not have, unfortunately, much of metro cities, but the clubs are very, very vibrant. We have around 3,100 plus Rotarians, very vibrant Rotarians, and around 380 plus women Rotarians in our districts. So with this small information, in this gathering today, we have a lot of president-elects, incoming assistant governors, past assistant governors, DGN, and few senior Rotarians of District 3240 who has been in Rotary quite for a long time and sincerely doing Rotary even in this situation when COVID is actually making some concern for us, and each and every Rotarian of 3240 is trying to stand beside the community with the help of local administrations and police. Fortunately, we have got the disaster response fund last week, though the fund hasn't come, but approval has come, and we are working on that piece to do more services to the humanity. With these words, I would welcome you to address 3240 Rotarians. It's all over, and after your address, I have a couple of questions, so we'll take over a few questions before we say goodbye to you. Thank you very much. Go ahead, take over, John. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much, Subhasish, and good evening to everyone participating in this virtual meeting. It's as Subhasish mentioned, it's morning here in Evanston. I think this is the beauty of technology today, is that we can have a meeting with, I think I see 67 participants with the click of a button. So thank you all very much for having me. Thank you for the participation of so many senior leaders from the region, as well as Rotarians. Let me first start by wishing all of you the best, hoping all of you are doing well in this time of incredible tragedy and crisis, particularly here in the United States. Our country's become the epicenter now of the coronavirus crisis in the world. Very difficult time for everyone in this unprecedented time. What I thought I would do is perhaps start by giving you a sense of what's happening with Rotary on a global level, and then perhaps some specific items, and then take your questions and answers in the second half of the time that we have. So at a global level, one of my primary responsibilities is to oversee the work of the Rotary International Secretariat. And as you may know, we have around 750 employees employed by Rotary International. We have around 550 in our offices in Evanston at Rotary World headquarters, and then another 200 some in our offices outside of the United States, including in Delhi and in Pune. In Pune, we have a lot of our back office and software development operations. And of course, in Delhi, our colleagues there are supporting directly the clubs in Southeast Asia. And I'm very proud of the fact that, at least it seemed to me, even back in January, as I was looking at the events in China, Korea. If I could ask everyone to please mute themselves. There's a lot of echo coming on. So there was, it seemed to be quite obvious what I was seeing in China, and as the virus is spreading to Korea and Singapore, Hong Kong, and other places, that it was just a matter of time before the whole world was going to experience this tragedy. And so we established very early on in January to try to get ahead of the game a COVID task force. We worked in close cooperation, getting information from the World Health Organization, other organs around the world, or relevant authorities in Evanston and in various places where we have our offices. And we were having weekly meetings, getting prepared for what eventually has turned out to be this tragedy. And as we were monitoring events, one of the key things we wanted to do was to be as prepared as possible, so that if we had to go to the current situation, the shelter-in-place situation, where lockdowns or shelter-in-place orders were to be given, to ensure that we did everything possible that Rotary could continue to function, the Secretariat could continue to function, Rotary International as a global organization could continue to function as seamlessly as possible in light of this new reality that we're facing. So we did we made sure that our IT capabilities were up to scratch. We did a dry run where we closed down the Secretariat and sent everybody home for a day to see how that would work. And through that, we sort of put together a list of issues that we encountered and then attempted to address them. And so when the virus really began spreading aggressively around the world, and we saw the tragedies unfolding in Italy and France and Spain, on March 12th, well before most organizations, I made the decision to go to full work-at-home status for the Secretariat. And we also put working with the Rotary International Senior Leadership, volunteer leadership, put a ban on all Rotary-funded travel, initially through April 30th and subsequently through May 30th. And I'm very pleased to say that in terms of the Secretariat and the employees who are supported through your dues, we have only five cases of COVID among our staff worldwide, 4 in the United States and 1 outside the United States. One of those 5 has now fully recovered, and the other 4 are doing extremely well. And all of them contracted the virus well after the 2-week period after we sent everyone home. So one of the proudest things for me as your General Secretary and as someone who is responsible for 750 colleagues is that I'm pretty confident that no one in the Secretary, at least has contracted the virus as a result of having worked at Rotary. They may have been asymptomatic, we don't know, but anyone, at least those colleagues who had symptomatic COVID, it appears that none of them contracted it while working for Rotary. So I think that's something I'm very proud of, and I think that all of us can be proud of. Now, as I speak, we are operating Rotary. This global organization is operating in a full virtual regime. I would say the Secretariat is operating at around 95% capacity. There are a few pockets of work within the Secretariat that can only be done by being physically in the office, but we've been very successful at repurposing those individuals to help in areas that are experiencing spikes in work. And I can say the same for the Southeast Asia office in Delhi, that it is operating almost at full capacity and continuing to provide service to you, the Rotarians, in the regions. The areas that have been particularly hard hit have been grants area, the convention team that works on the convention, club and district support. A lot of questions from Rotarians as we try to move to this virtual virtual environment. And the communications team has been extremely busy with the various communications the challenges that we face right now. So that's just a quick update of where we stand on the Secretariat. We're open for business. Delhi office is open for business. And hopefully you as Rotarians have not seen a significant drop off in the level and quality of service, even though we are now in this virtual regime. Now let me perhaps put I get a lot of questions about what's this going to mean for our membership, what's this going to mean for our organization long term, and so I asked the Tom Parsons, who is our Chief Strategy Officer, to have his team undertake a study of what was the effect on membership in Rotary historically, going back to 1905, when the world has faced similar types of crises. And what was interesting was that during, if you look at all the major crises the world's faced, starting with World War I. In World War I, membership actually increased. And I suspect that that's a bit of an anomaly because Rotary was clearly at a point where it was taking off like gangbusters as an organization. But membership actually increased during World War I. During the Great Depression, and I'm talking about sort of globally now, and there are obviously differences among various regions. But during the Great Depression, during the years of the Great Depression, membership actually continued to increase. The first year after the Depression ended, membership fell by a little over 1%, and then the second year it fell by 5%. And that has actually been the largest annual drop ever in the history of Rotary, 5%. During World War II, membership dropped no more than 1%, 1.5% in any given year. And during the, including the Great Recession we had in 2008, 2009. So in Rotary's history, there's been 1 year where there was a significant membership drop, and that was a 5%, and that was the second year after the Depression. And so, yes, that would be unfortunate if it would happen, but if history is any measure of what the past is the measure of what the future may bring us, I think it's historically at least, these types of crises have not dramatically affected worldwide membership, at least if you take the organization as a whole. Now, the good news is that we are very well positioned for this crisis. We've done a very good job through the years to build up Rotary's reserves. Rotary International's reserves currently stand at 69 million, and the minimum requirement is 52 under our policies, and the Rotary Foundation has a reserve of 82 million. So it's precisely why we've been very prudent stewards of your money and have built up these reserves to be able to weather a crisis such as this. So in the short term, I think we're going to feel no financial impact, at least at the international level, because even if we were to experience a drop in membership, we have significant reserves and been considerable cost savings because all of the in-person meetings that we would be having, that would be funded out of the international budget, all of the travel that would be funded under the international has now come to a halt, which has resulted in the short term, at least, in considerable savings. So again, I just wanted to sort of paint a historical picture because I do get a lot of questions about what does this mean for us and what's it going to mean in terms of membership. We'll see how it plays out, but I'm very confident we will weather this because we do have good reserves and we do have passionate, active Rotarians. Another question I get is with respect to polio. Where are we in terms of the polio effort? And unfortunately, given the fact that the world is in lockdown and is in a mode of social distancing, the Polio Oversight Board made a very difficult decision to pause the house-to-house vaccinations, even though this may lead to an increase in polio cases. However, over the next 4 to 6 months, the polio program is offering its tools, its workforce, extensive surveillance network to support countries as they respond. It's being trained on COVID case detection, contract tracing, laboratory testing, data management. So the GPI is really deploying its resources now to really assist in this COVID effort. And of course, we need as Rotarians to continue our effort to support the polio eradication cause, particularly in terms of fundraising. We do have this a 2-to-1 match from the Gates Foundation. So we still need to raise our $50 million this year, which results in an additional $100 million for polio from the Gates Foundation. And of course, we are studying on a lot of unused DDF. And of course, any DDF that's allocated would be matched in effect 6-to-1, because he would get an equivalent World Fund match, and then of course match 2-to-1 by the Gates Foundation. So that's where we are in terms of polio. In terms of our response to COVID, the Rotary International, the Rotary Foundation trustees have established a $3 million COVID disaster response fund, where in an expedited basis, a district can apply for up to $25,000 in grants for COVID response activities. We've been processing those grant applications extremely quickly, a limit of 1 per district, and we've had initially allocated $1 million. That was exhausted almost overnight. Trustees have added an additional $2 million with 3. And I don't have the latest figures, but I suspect that $3 million has also already been used up. And so our plea to Rotarians is to support this fund. We have, again, $50 million of unused DDF sitting in the Rotary world. And so we're now undertaking an aggressive request from Rotarians to both in terms of DDF and cash, make DDF and cash contributions to this COVID disaster response fund. Of course, you're still eligible to apply for district grants and global grants, and we have really streamlined and expedited the process, particularly with respect to COVID-related grants, to get them out the door, to get it to Rotarians, so that they can put it to use in their communities. In terms of our operations going forward, it's interesting that, and I think this is actually, as terrible as this one is, and I don't in any way mean to diminish the severity of this crisis. Personally, I have a 81-year-old father and 86-year-old mother. My mother has severe dementia. She's in a nursing home. No family member has been in touch with her in 4 weeks. And all I know is the sporadic information I get from the facility. And there have been COVID cases in her area. She fortunately is not one who has it, but you never know. My father's 91, also has memory loss, and he spent Easter looking out the window of his facility, waving at my brother and his family as they drove and stood under his window to say hello. So in my case, what I'm dealing with is nothing compared to what many people are. So this is a terrible time for all of us, and I don't mean in any way to diminish its difficulty. But in every crisis, there is a silver lining. And I think for us as an organization, we have been trying for a long time to continue to increase the use of technology, encouraging clubs and Rotarians to use technology to hold meetings such as this one. And necessity is often the mother of invention. And I think this crisis has really forced the organization to move in technology in a way that it accelerate that move significantly. It's amazing how many Rotarians and senior leaders I talk to who say, I just was on, 5 meetings today. I talked with thousands of people, and the cost is zero. It's zero, and it's highly effective. You can, it would have taken me months or weeks to do all this in person, and it's significant more cost. I've had Rotary clubs reach out to me and say, our attendance has doubled since we've gone virtual. We used to get 50% attendance. We're now at 85, 90%. In fact, our club, which meets 4 times a week physically, is now going to only meet 3 times a month physically. Only going to meet 3 times a month physically, and one of the meetings we're now going to do virtually. And so I think this has opened an opportunity for us to think about how we operate as Rotarians, and to find new, more effective, efficient ways using technology. Now, one thing that can never change in our organization is, our ethics, our values, the 4-way test. But how we meetings is something that those aren't values. That's just a mechanism we use to impart our values. And I think this is going to open up a lot of creativity and a lot of new ways of operating, which brings me to the other point in that in the council legislation in 2016 provided clubs tremendous flexibility now in terms of how you organize your meetings, attendance requirements, types of membership, etc. So this idea of club flexibility is an idea that we have really been pushing aggressively for the last 3 years, because, you know, we have not in your part of the world, but in certain parts of the world, the United States, Canada, Australia, New Zealand, UK, other places, we've seen a significant drop in membership. And worldwide, our membership has been flat at about 1.2 million for the last 20 years. And it's only because of the growth in Asia that we've been able to offset the decline in some of the regions I just mentioned. And so for me, at least in those areas having significant membership issues, it's a question of what is the product that we're offering. And in some parts of the world, we're offering a product that worked extremely well for 100 years, our traditional product, but is no longer as attractive as it used to be. And so the world isn't going to change for us. We need to change for the world. And with that comes rethinking what is our product. It's the experience you get by joining a Rotary Club. You pay with your money and your time, and it's the experience that you're buying. That's the product you're buying. And I say product not in that we're selling soap. We're not. We're selling something more than that. We're selling our values, our ideals, our doing good in the world. We're product with a capital P. But what we offer is not as attractive as it used to be in many parts of the world. So we need to rethink that and offer a product that's more attractive, particularly to the younger generations. And it's been hard. It's been hard to get that tradition is very deep and steeped in Rotary. Tradition is good. But I think one of the silver linings here is that this tragedy has unleashed a slew of creative thinking and realization in the Rotary world, particularly in those parts that are suffering with membership, that perhaps we can do things differently, and it's not the end of the world. And I think that is perhaps a silver lining that we're going to see. Another question I get quite a bit of, and I'm sure it's going to come up in the Q&A, so let me address it right now, and that is the international dues. As you know, the international dues to Rotary International, $68 a year, $34 semi-annually. Getting questions about, are we going to diminish or waive dues because of this crisis? And the answer is no. We are not going to be waiving dues as a global policy or reducing dues as a global policy. However, we will be prepared to look at on a case-by-case basis to perhaps delay for a appropriate period the payment of dues. And I say that because in most of the world, the vast cost of being a Rotarian are not the $34 semi-annual dues to Rotary International. It's the club dues, the district dues, the regional dues, and all the various other ancillary events and things that Rotarians attend. And those costs have obviously dropped dramatically to almost zero. The other point is we need to keep the Secretariat and working. As I said, we're working at 95% of our capacity for continuing to provide the support and services that Rotarians expect. If we were to eliminate dues right now, we will stop processing grants. We'll stop supporting the clubs. We'll stop working on a virtual convention. So the Secretariat needs to, and the Rotary International needs to continue to operate. And so it was a tough decision, not an easy one, because we understand many parts of the world are suffering economically, significant economic issues. We've decided as a global policy not to waive or to reduce the Rotary International dues, but instead to look at requests on a case-by-case basis, and as appropriate, provide relief through by allowing a delay in the payment of invoices. And then finally, two last things. The convention. That was a very difficult decision to cancel the international convention. But again, Rotary was ahead of the curve. We were ahead of the other service organizations, and it became quite obvious that the health and safety of our Rotarians is first and foremost. And given the reality, there's certainly not going to be possible to hold a convention in Honolulu. So we've canceled the convention, as you're aware. Every registrant will receive a full refund, and we're in the process now of processing those refunds. You do have the option of contributing your refund to COVID, and we're finding a surprisingly large percentage of Rotarians are requesting that their refunds be repurposed for the current crisis, which is very heartwarming, and as I would have expected, given the ethos that exists in Rotary. And then finally, one last thought, Subhashish, before I pass it over back to you and perhaps questions if there are any. This is Rotary's moment. Rotary is uniquely positioned to make a difference in the world in these types of situations, because there's no other organization that has the breadth and the platform and the community engagement and the penetration into communities all over the world like Rotary. And so now more than ever, the world needs Rotary. This is our moment to redouble our efforts, to step up our game, and to make a difference like very few other organizations can. Now more than ever is why one would want to be a Rotarian, to be able to join an organization that's truly capable and is making a difference in our communities. Rotary was built for moments such as this one. We've done it in the past. We've done it with global initiatives such as the eradication of polio, and we're doing it now in light of this terrible, terrible tragedy. And the stories I'm getting and that we're getting at Rotary International of the work Rotarians are doing in your part of the world and throughout the world are just extraordinary and heartwarming. And we also need Rotary more because what is Rotary? It's not only about doing good in the world, it's about connecting people. It's about those personal relationships that we develop. It's about our fellowship. It's about supporting each other. And thanks to technology, thanks to the fact that we have this incredible network, and it allows all of us to stay connected. I'm fortunate that I'm, have a home with, my wife is with me and our daughter who is doing her master's in Paris. We asked her to come home and she did, just to have her close by. So there's three, but there are people, including Rotarians, who are in maybe a small apartment and on their own with no family to support them. And that is the other part of the value we're offering now, the connectivity, to stay in touch, to feel part of a community. All of us need to feel part of a community right now, as we're isolated in our homes and in our apartments during this terrible time. And so both on a doing good in the world and making a difference, but also on the aspect of connecting people, keeping that sense of community. This is Rotary's moment, and I am very proud to be a Rotarian, very proud to be your General Secretary at this time, and I think each and every one of you, I suspect, is equally proud to be a Rotarian as our organization steps up in this very difficult but historic moment. So thank you all for all that you're doing. Thank you all for being the Rotarians that you are. Together we will get through this, and thank God for technology. And as long as the internet continues to work, I think Rotary will continue to work, both making a difference, but also connecting people, keeping that human element, that spark of human interaction going strong. So thank you for the opportunity to address you this, well, my morning, your evening, and more than happy to take any questions, comments, or suggestions that you might have. So thank you, Subhashish.
unmute करो নিজেকে।
Subhashish, unmute yourself.
Subhashish
Yeah,
unmute करो।
can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah. So, John, thank you so much for enlightening the House with of Rotary International and pertaining to this current situation where Rotary International is looking forward. So I'm sure the participants of this call, whosoever attending today, they have some certain ideas from your deliberation that the Rotaries look out in days to come, because as you very rightly said, that the days are not would be very good or very comfortable. We have to have a hard time, but I'm sure the Rotary is determined to doing some good in this world more. Thank you very much for enlightening the House. John, I'm happy to share with you that in this way, I have few of my batchmate governor-elects joining in different parts of the India, and also my batchmate Rajiv Pokhral has joined from Kathmandu, Nepal. I welcome all my batchmates, Gajendra Singh, Muthu, Chinappa, Harish, Rajiv, Balaji Babu, Epsi Mohanty, and Veer. And if I miss someone, please excuse me. I could notice all this thing. And thank you very much for joining this call. We have a couple of Rotarians who have sent their questions, and I would just request Danny to unmute as per the sequence.
Yes,
So first question coming from, So first question from Sapnendu Mustafi. Danny, unmute Sapnendu Mustafi from Durgapur, Aero City.
It's not happening. I think he has to unmute himself.
Sapnendu, can you unmute
Hello.
Yeah. Go ahead.
Yeah, are you able to listen to me?
Yes.
But Sapnendu, before you start, this is information for you and as well as all the participants. Please ask your question in short and brief manner. Do not put up any statement or suggest, ask your question if you have anything asked to John. Go ahead, Sapnendu.
Hello.
Yes,
Good
Sapnendu,
evening,
go ahead.
John. This is Sapnendu from this part of the world. Good morning to you. Due to this pandemic, we have lost nearly a month till now and getting locked down. I don't really know how many days more we have to. So we already got our steps assembly deferred. In the process of the Rotary will be short for 10 or 11 months. So what are the changes to be done during the preparation for the presidents or other leaders for the planning this year, planning his Rotary year? You get me?
Yes, thank you. Well, that's a very good question. And again, President like Holger obviously is hard now. Together, we're working with how are we going to operate on an international level given this crisis, and we don't know how long it's going to last, and how long, gradually the restrictions will be loosened. But what I can tell you is that in terms of this Rotary year, they're both President Mark and President like Holger and nominee Sheikh are really using technology fairly aggressively, holding meetings with Rotarians throughout the world, just like the one I'm having with you. We have some very good technology in place for interpretation to allow many of these to be held in languages where the speaker may not speak that language. And we're now, as I mentioned, in terms of this year, thinking through, okay, how can we hold a convention in this new virtual reality? So it'll be an interesting experiment to see, what we can do and how successful that will be. Now, in terms of the next Rotary year, many of the institutes are being canceled or being postponed till into 2021. Many of the district conferences are being suspended. Certainly this Rotary year, I was planning on being at 4 or 5 conferences, and all of them have been canceled, rightfully so. And so it's really, the planning is really on a week by week basis. It's a constantly unfolding situation. But what is certain is that we will not be holding many of the events that were scheduled for the first quarter, certainly, maybe for the first 6 months of the next Rotary year. as far as the International Assembly goes, as we monitor the situation, we need to think through very carefully as to whether, what I don't want to do is get into a position where in January or December, we pick up our heads and go, oh, gee, we still can't hold the assembly and we really haven't done we should have a plan B. So all of our thinking now is, we learned our lesson through this experience, that it helps to plan, it helps to think ahead, it helps to have contingency plans. And that's what we're going to be doing. But I think as a matter of practice, many of the physical events that we held are just simply not going to happen. But on the other hand, it's very encouraging that we're able to do a great deal of Rotary's business internationally, certainly, using this technology. We've already had one trustee meeting, Board of Trustees of the Foundation meeting virtually, very successful. Next week, we have the Board of Directors meeting. We're going to hold it virtually, and the trustees again after that. In addition, the executive committees of both boards have been meeting, and I meet weekly with the presidential chain virtually, and it works extremely well.
Thank you. Thank you, John, for elaborating the question that was asked by Sapnindu. John, we have next question coming from another past president and a past assistant governor from Northeast Assam, from Guwahati, Rotary Club of Guwahati City, Sumitra Goswami. Sumitra, go ahead, ask your question, please.
Good morning to you. Good evening from us here. My question today is nothing to do with the current situation. I wanted to ask you, from modern history to being the CEO of Rotary International, how has the journey been?
No, it's been it's very interesting one. As you mentioned, I first started out as an attorney, as a lawyer. I was a partner with the law firm Baker and McKenzie, which at that time I think still is the largest law firm in the world. And I did my whole career with them in Eastern Europe, in Moscow, and then in Ukraine for a long time, and then in the Czech Republic. And then I came back to the States in 2001, and I joined the Bush administration, the George W. Bush administration. I was a senior political appointee, and we were establishing a new United States Foreign Assistance Agency, not to compete with USAID, but to complement what they do. And after that, I was a political appointee. So when Obama won the election, those of us who were political appointees become, as they like to say in the UK, redundant. And so the question then was, what do I do next? And this opportunity to work with Rotary came up, and I had been a charter member of the first Rotary Club in Ukraine after the fall of the Soviet Union. My father had been, still is a Rotarian, 40 years in Michigan near Detroit. And in fact, I got this job, found out about it. My father was a very avid reader of the Rotarian magazine, and he was reading the magazine one day and noticed that there's an advertisement that Rotary was looking for a new general secretary. And so he tore it out and then wrote across the corner, you may want to check this out. You seem to have the qualifications. And he mailed it to me. And I still keep that letter of his, on my wall in the office. And so I think this is through that I got in touch with the search firm and also became your general secretary. But I think there are two important lessons that I learned from that experience. One is that you should always listen to your father. And the second is that very good things happen when you read the Rotarian magazine. So it's been a great journey for me. I've had different phases of my life, but this is perhaps, I would say, certainly one of the most fulfilling of the various adventures I've had professionally and personally.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you, John, and thank you, Sumitra. The question you have asked, really, it is something different from the current COVID situation. And your question's answer, I'm sure, helped the other Rotarians who are here to know more John Hewko than they used to know earlier. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Yeah. So next question from Sukhbinder Singh, Rotarian Sukhbinder Singh, another past president from Rotary Club of Amenity Bardhaman. Sukhbinder, go ahead.
Hello, John. My question, this lockdown brings a new opportunity, and that is the virtual meetings. As district governors travels a lot throughout the whole year, and sometimes they forget their families because due to this travels. So why not we can accept and adopt this virtual DG visits also in the coming days, and it itself reduce the cost also, as Rotary International spends a lot of money on DG visits also. Do you think, what's your views?
Yes, thank you. That's a very good point, and one I forgot to make my entry comments. Yes, we do spend that. I think it's like 8 or 9 million a year on the DGs and their visits and all of that. And again, the DG visits are very important, historically, a very important part of the Rotary experience. And there are parts of the world where clubs like the DG visit and look forward to it. Other parts of the world and other regions who've already now, even before this crisis, we're talking about, do we really need to be spending this money and having the DGs, making, because, in some areas where you have, 90, 120 clubs, it's a full-time job being a district governor. And so as we're trying to attract perhaps younger people or people still in mid-career to be governors, who can afford to basically take 2 years off to fulfill the obligations of being a district governor. And again, this varies from region to region, country to country. There's no one size fits all on this. But I think your point is absolutely well taken, that I'm now had a number of DGEs reach out to me and say, I'm going to be doing, start doing my visits virtually. I don't need to go visit every club. And the clubs actually are realizing that these virtual visits actually, in some ways, more productive, because it's very easy to attend. You're in your home, you have the meeting such as the one we're having now. And so I think there's going to be a cultural shift, not everywhere, but certainly in those areas that were already on the path of thinking differently and acting differently. This is kind of was the last push. And I suspect the area and more traditional and more resistant to this change. Some of those may say, well, hey, this isn't, I really don't need to be spending all this money and time doing a good 110 or 115 clubs. And we need to, we've been rethinking the role of the governor. How to role that doesn't require to basically take 2 years off. Limits the ability of people. You have to either be independently wealthy or have your own company or have an incredibly flexible employer to allow you to undertake the job of district governor and the time commitment that it involves. So I don't think, to answer your question, one size fits all. I think different parts of the world will seize this opportunity differently. And there's no right or wrong answer. It's what works and what makes sense. But from a pure cost-cutting measure, yeah, not just DG visits. It's like, do we need to have all these committees meeting in Evanston with the frequency that they do? Can we do some of these meetings virtually at the regional level and at the district level? Can we save costs by doing more meetings virtually? So I think it's across the board. I said this tragedy has opened up, at least in most people's eyes, because everybody is living it. Hold on a second, there is maybe a different way of doing things. It's more cost effective and cheaper. And again, the cost of Rotary is not so much the national dues, it's really all the costs that the club and district and region love. So it'll be to see how the different parts of the world react. And that's the beauty of Rotary, the diversity and of Rotary as you move around the world.
Thank you, John, and thank you, Sukhbinder, for asking a question. I was very attentive to listening this question because I have next year the line of visits coming up. Next question we have from a young Rotarian who is the incoming assistant governor, a past president from Guwahati again, Abhishek Jitani. Abhishek, go ahead with your question, please.
Good morning. I have always been fascinated with the term CEO since my childhood. So when I came to know from DG that you are going to address us, so I prepared this question. How does it feel from being the General Secretary of Rotary International to the CEO? And has there been some changes in the roles and responsibility, or it's just that the terminology has changed from General Secretary to the CEO?
Thank you. That's another very good question. It's a terminology change. One of the role changed. In terms of the bylaws and the policies have not been amended in terms of taking away or giving me more authority. It is what it was. But General Secretary is a very somewhat archaic title. And part of my obligation, not only do I oversee the work of the Secretariat and the employees, but I also, am out not nearly as much as the president, but I am out representing Rotary, not only speaking to Rotary clubs, but particularly working with outside partners to develop our outside organizations trips with Rotary, representing Rotary at events such as Davos and other international symposium. And most people, when I say General Secretary, they have no clue. And so I'll go in and meet with a potential partner and say, I'm the General Secretary of Rotary. And they go, what's that? And I spend 10 minutes explaining what I do. And they go, oh, well, you're kind of like the CEO. I said, yeah. And so I think it was really an attempt to just change the terminology to reflect what's actually the case, and certainly makes it much easier for me, certainly outside the Rotary world, to interface with equivalents in the organizations that we deal with. But no, it has not led to an increase in what the job role and responsibilities are. The relationship with the president and that distribution of role and responsibility has not changed.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Thank you, Abhishek, for asking your questions. The next question coming up for President-elect of Rotary Club of Bolpur Shantiniketan, Vishadev Chatterjee. Vishadev, I have unmuted you. Go ahead, ask your question, please.
Hello, Mr. Hewko.
Yeah, you can go ahead. Go ahead. We can hear you.
On considering the present situation, is there any possibility that RI shifts its entire focus only to remediate corona disasters across globe on health and economic fields?
I'm sorry, I didn't quite. If you could be brief.
Come again.
Yeah, I repeat. On considering the present situation, is there any possibility that RI shifts its entire focus only to remediate corona disasters across globe on health and economic fields?
In other words, you're asking.
Is it possibility to shift the focus of RI to remediate corona disasters across globe on health and economic fields?
So you're asking whether that we should undertake this as a global initiative?
Focus, change of focus.
Right.
Oh, change area of focus. Well, right now, any work done in the COVID area would clearly fall in the disease prevention and treatment area of focus. And so we're still receiving and are encouraging global grants from clubs and districts that are focused on COVID. And obviously that would fall within the disease prevention treatment area of focus. There's not been talk of a new area of focus, just focusing on COVID. And then, of course, the economic and community development area of focus is very appropriate for the non-medical effects of the COVID crisis, how it's affecting communities on an economic and other levels. So I do feel we do have two areas of focus that in the global grant context can be used to deal with both the health and the economic aspects of COVID. But we do need more support from Rotarians in terms of the disaster fund. We're continuing to ask Rotarians to contribute DDF and cash. We have over $50 million in unused DDF in the Rotary world that we need to utilize, and we are again encouraging global grants proposals in both dealing with both of those aspects of the virus. On a slightly different note, there is discussion going on as to the environment and potentially that being an additional area of focus. And not yet been taken by the Foundation Board of Trustees. So any area of focus discussion, by the way, would be a Rotary Foundation decision, not a Rotary International decision.
And Mr. Hewko, particularly in India, we need rebuilding of rural economy. It is almost being devastated.
Yes,
so
yes.
Rebuilding rural economy is a priority now.
Yes, and I suspect that right now it's about, PPE and, masks, and it's, dealing with, people can't get food. But you're right, phase 2 will be now the economic rebuild that's going to be necessary after this crisis passes. I mean, the U.S. unemployment is skyrocketed. I suspect, as an example, and I suspect in your country as well, as the country goes into lockdown, and and the social safety nets are certainly not going to be adequate to cover everyone who's now lost their jobs. So yes, that this will be a huge focus, I suspect, of Rotary once the immediate medical crisis passes.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thanks, John, and thank you, Bishoda, for asking a very pertinent question. John, as you know that Rotary is focusing the need very much, and we are also not going behind of that. In this call today, DIR, the District Interact Representative incoming. She's there already, a young girl from a school, and she has one question to ask you. I would request Megashri to kindly ask your question to John Hewko. Megashri, go ahead. Megashri, can you hear us? Megashri, can you hear us? I can see you, but can you hear us? Okay, Danny, you can check with Megashri. Meantime, unmute Robin Majumdar, Dr. Robin Majumdar.
Hello.
Yeah. So next question from Dr. Robin Majumdar. He's a senior Rotarian, a doctor by profession, and a past president and past assistant governors.
Hello.
Yeah, Dr. Majumdar, go ahead.
You can hear me?
Yes, go ahead, please. We can hear you.
Okay, good morning to John Hewko.
Sir, my audio.
You have been serving RI for quite long time, first as General Secretary and now as CEO. Now it will be very difficult for you, but definitely still I am asking, which Rotary year has been most memorable to you?
I think obviously the first one was one. It's very memorable because it was my first experience with Rotary. It was an awful lot to learn. I was very fortunate that Kalyan Banerjee was president my first year as your general secretary. I had a very strong, excellent personal relationship with Kalyan. We on a personal level, we had a great relationship. He was very good to work with and really helped smooth the transition for me into the job. So anytime, it's like when you have children, right? Your first child, you love them all, but your first one is very often the one you kind of
thank you,
most remember. But they've all been great. All the years have been great. Every year is different. Obviously, the year of the centennial of the foundation and being in Atlanta for the announcement of the giving pledge, 2 point whatever it was $billion that was pledged on stage. I mean, so many. They've all been great. But I think your first year is always the one you kind of remember most.
Okay, thank you for that. Any noticeable changes you observe over these years? Any noticeable changes?
Yes, I do think that. Yes, I think there have been some noticeable changes. One is the sort of the shift in as our membership trends continue to kind of increase in membership in certain parts of the world and decreasing membership in others. I think you're seeing a more of a balanced Rotary now in terms of its governance and the influence from parts of the world that hadn't had that influence in the past. So sort of at a governance level, there's been a shift, sort of slow shift, more toward those parts of the world that are seeing an increase in membership. I'm also seeing an organization that is realizing that we need to change, that that there was a bit of a sort of, you know, we've always done it this way. It's always been like this. And we you know, and there's now a realization, at least in certain parts of the world where membership has been declining, that we need to change. We need to think differently. We need to revamp our product line. And the challenge, of course, is how do you do that while at the same time maintaining the glue that keeps Rotary different? So I think, if you were to ask, really the biggest change is I think that Rotary is evolving differently in different parts of the world. And that's not a bad thing. It's just a reality. And the challenge will be, how do we continue to maintain that Rotary glue when Rotary is evolving and changing differently in different parts of the world? Your part of the world is not in a good or bad way, just different in some ways from the kind of Rotary you're going to see in another part of the world. And there's no right or wrong answer here, but that I think would be the single biggest change, is that I do see that there is an evolution that's different in different parts of the world. No question.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Majumdar, and thank you, John, for answering Dr. Majumdar's question so nicely. As we just said, we have District Interact representative incoming for 2021, a young girl from a school, Mrigasri Barua. Mrigasri, you can just go ahead and ask your question to John. Mrigasri, can you hear us? Mrigasri, is there any problem with your audio? Because we cannot hear you.
No. There is a Rotaractor who wants to ask.
Who is the Rotaractor? Unmute him then.
Mrityunjay.
Yeah, unmute him.
Yeah, he's unmuted.
Hello.
Yeah.
Hello, this is Rotaractor Mrityunjay from Assam.
Yeah, Mrityunjay, go ahead. Yes, go ahead. Ask your question quickly.
Yeah. So actually, we have been working, like, you know, from my place, I've been working in this Teach India mission. So basically, I wanted to know from Mr. John whether, like, you know, the way we are meeting right now through Zoom, can we link Teach India mission with this thing, like, you know, by walking through Zoom and all? So I want to ask, like, I want to get some, like, you know, just on how we as Rotators can add up fundraisers to, you know, add money to this COVID-19 fund.
Yeah, that's a great question, and I think it's a challenge, and I don't have an answer for you, because because right now all of us in the Rotary world, not only Rotaractors, Rotarians, how are we going to continue raising funds either for polio or for all of the other things we do, and for COVID, when our traditional way of fundraising has been dinners, walkathons, things that bring people together. Now, obviously, we have fundraising campaigns that we do virtually and through
Can I just add up? So actually, I basically wanted to know if you can suggest us any digital ways, like, you know, like in this scenario, we're conversing through Zoom. So in this way, do you have any idea, like, digitally, how can we raise money for the COVID fund?
Yeah, that's what I was getting at. I don't have any concrete ideas, and that's my really call to action to the Rotary world. We, as Rotarians and Rotaractors, need to put our thinking caps on and begin developing creative ways of fundraising in a virtual environment. You know, for me, you know, if you look at the ALS Ice Bucket Challenge, I don't know if you remember that, when people were dumping ice all over themselves. And they raised $300 and some million, if I remember correctly, for ALS, and it cost them nothing. And so that's where we really need to put our creative hats on. And I think Rotaractors, you can play a huge role, because you're much more tech savvy than many Rotarians, to help us think through and come up with these creative ideas for how to raise money in this time of virtual activity. I don't have. And what we are as an organization now trying to do is to find those different, and then curate them, and then make them available to the Rotary world. But we're just starting down this path. And I don't have a magic bullet. And that's where we need your help and your creativity to help us develop those new fundraising tools in the virtual space. Sorry, I don't have the magic bullet right now, but putting our heads together, 1.2 million Rotarians and 300,000-400,000 Rotaractors, we will come up with the creative ways to do it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Rotaractor Mrityunjay, and thank you, John. John, we have all questions answers done, but before we end, I have one question on behalf of few Rotarians who has this is in their mind. How would you see environment to be included in any of Rotary's focus areas in coming days? That is a question that a lot of Rotarians are having in their mind.
Yeah, environment is obviously a huge issue. All the surveys we do, particularly with younger people, indicate that environment is one of the top issues that they're both concerned about and interested in. And so the Rotary Foundation trustees are now looking at two different options. One is we have and will continue, one would be to continue to strengthen the environmental aspects in each of our existing 6 areas of focus. And we've already done that to a certain degree, is that we have strengthened and highlighted environment more clearly in the 6 areas of focus, because in some ways environment cuts across, health and disease prevention, treatment. Well, water and sanitation, community development, all of those have significant environmental aspects tied to them. So that's one approach, would be to continue to strengthen environment within the 6 areas of focus. And another would be to add environment as a 7th area of focus. That decision has not yet been taken, and the trustees are currently looking at these 2 options and trying to determine, figure out which of the 2 is most appropriate for Rotary. But what is clear is that regardless of which direction we go in, environment will and already is taking on a much higher profile and much higher importance within Rotary, because not only is it an extraordinarily important issue, but it's one that our membership, and particularly the younger demographic we're trying to target, has indicated is extremely, extremely important to them.
Thank you so much, John. I really appreciate the way you have answered the questions. I'm sure a lot of doubts, a lot of confusion that we had, it has been cleared. On behalf of 3,000 plus Rotarians, I convey my heartfelt thanks to you. Though the governor is not present here, because my serving governor by profession is a doctor, Dr. Debashish Das, and he runs also a hospital. So because of his professional reason, this is a big time for visiting the wards and all that. So he could not come, but he has sent his greetings, best wishes to you and Margarita for that. And also, as this meeting is happening virtually, we are not meeting physically, so we couldn't have any opportunity to give you something physically as a token of love from 3240. But definitely through this call, through this meeting, we are sending an invisible basket to your place that has a lot of good wishes, greetings from 3240 India, this part of the country. And we wish all the best. Stay safe, have a good health for you and Margarita and your elderly parents. All stay safe. We thank you very much for these connections. We look forward. Rotary opens up more opportunity for us in days to come. Thank you so much, John, for being with us.
Thank you. Thank you for having me, and please again pass along my best wishes to all the Rotarians in 3240 and Rotarians from the other districts who are on this call. And I wish all of you health and safety as we work through this very, very difficult,
Right.
So all the best.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you, John. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Raja. Thank you, John.
Thank you everyone. Oh, I have unmuted everyone.
Now it is a chaos.
Unmuted everyone. So you can have a little bit of your fellowship.
Thank you.
We can have a big clap for everybody.
Thank you.
And I'm happy to see today we have few new faces joining. Samir Chaudhary, Jayanti Chaudhary joined from Asansol. And I have seen, some other faces also joining today from different parts of the district.